notifications.com.
This is the Gridiron Guesser, the premier guesser in all of sports.
Hey there, and welcome back to the Gridiron Guesser's Week 1 recap of the start of the college football season. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Yes, we're new here on YouTube, but you're going to find out that we have some of the best insights around, and you won't want to miss our picks as the season rolls on. We all remember that awful 0-3 start we had in Week 0 to open the season. But since then, we've reeled off 6 out of our last 8 against the spread, and that's just the beginning. We stuck with our secret formula here after Week 0, and it paid off, and it's going to continue to pay off all throughout the season. We pick winners here at the Gridiron Guesser, and that's just what we're going to do. So subscribe, like, and turn on those notifications, and let's f***ing go. On to our recap of Week 1. Let's start by looking at our spread winners. We would like to thank these 6 teams for coming through and not making liars out of us here at the Gridiron Guesser. And a special shout out to James Franklin and Penn State, who must have clearly known what the point spread was on the game as they continued scoring until the final seconds. So if you were on West Virginia there, you should have listened. Okay, now let's look at some of the teams that won their respective games over the weekend, and in the process either answered some questions that we thought were important for their team this season or have become early season surprises. Of course, we have Colorado that went into Fort Worth and stunned the Horned Frogs. Yeah, we missed it just like everyone else. And how about the Wyoming Cowboys coming back from 17 points down to beat Texas Tech? The Texas State Bobcats going into Waco and physically bullying around Baylor. And then the games most of us watched as Florida State and Duke just opened up a couple of cans of whoop-ass in the second half and dismantled LSU and Clemson. Then we look around and see teams like North Carolina that appear to have a defense this season, or Texas A&M that appears to have an offense this season. Has Alabama already found their man at quarterback as Jalen Milroe looked very good in his first game of the season? And what about the Pac-12 as a whole, still undefeated on the season? And it looks like there are a handful of teams out west that are legit Pac-12 contenders. Let's move on to the f***ing losers of Week 1. Here we have a few teams that really stood out to us here at the Gridiron Guesser as either being overrated, overhyped, or just f***ing awful. South Carolina is atrocious up front on the offensive line, and they really could not get much going at all on offense. LSU's secondary is bad. Very, very bad. Clemson just looked very pedestrian on offense. The turnovers were killers. Cade Klubnik looked like a cheap knockoff of DJU from last season. Dabo looked flustered. Is the Clemson run over? It very well could be. TCU couldn't stop anything on defense. Texas Tech blew a big lead and got caught possibly looking ahead. Baylor just looked soft. And the worst performance of the week had to go to the Arkansas State Red Wolves. Yikes. How is Butch Jones still there? The Red Wolves might as well have been Bishop's Sycamore against Oklahoma. They are a horrible football team. Obviously, we have just barely begun the 2023 season, and because of that, there are still plenty of teams that have lots of questions that still need to be answered. Is Kyle McCord really the guy at Ohio State? Georgia and Texas, they looked okay in their openers, but maybe not to the level expected by their fan bases. And what about teams like Kentucky, North Carolina State, Illinois, Louisville? Are they really outside contenders for their conference races? And how about Minnesota and Nebraska? Could they possibly have worse offenses than even Iowa? That could make the Big Ten West very interesting this season. Or boring. We'll just have to wait and see. Now we're going to go around the country and give you some quick takes from each of the Power 5 conferences, starting with the Pac-12. You know, the Pac-12 is off to an unbelievable start. They're undefeated still on this early season. There are lots of teams in the Pac-12 that really look like they could contend for the conference title and maybe even beyond. It's not just USC. It's not just Oregon or Washington. You've got teams out there like Oregon State. DJU looked really good at quarterback. Of course, you've got Colorado that surprised people. Obviously, we don't feel like they're quite ready to contend for a conference title, but they looked impressive. The overall feeling here at the Pac-12 is you better start learning to stay up late because that's where some of the best games are going to be during this 2023 college football season. Over in the SEC, Let's start off by just calling it what it is. LSU and South Carolina were very overhyped coming into this season. While both teams obviously could still put together good seasons, we don't necessarily see LSU or South Carolina being able to have one of those magical seasons that some people thought they might be able to have. Look, if your team won, just be okay with it. If Milroe is for real at Alabama, they could really dominate this season. If they have a quarterback with the talent they have all around on that team, Alabama will be a tough out for anyone this season. And as far as A&M goes, it was great to see them score some points. Need to see what they're going to do against Miami this week. That'll be a very good test for Texas A&M to see just how legit that offense is and see if it's something that Bobby Petrino has been able to fix in his short time there. Up in the Big Ten, the very first thing is we need to see more from the Big Three, being Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. Of the three, Penn State probably looked the best. Michigan and Ohio State, they both won pretty handily, but not maybe what everyone was expecting. Need to see more of those teams to kind of get a feel for how this season might go and which one of those teams has the leg up on the others. We already kind of discussed this. Is Kyle McCord really the guy there at Ohio State, or is Devin Brown going to come on and take that job from him? It looks like Iowa is still Iowa with just a terrible offense. And then lots of work to be done around the conference. Teams like Wisconsin, Minnesota, Nebraska, Illinois, those teams look like they still have a lot of work to do if they're going to try and compete for their division titles this season. The Big 12 is off to a rough start. Obviously, you've already had TCU, Texas Tech, and Baylor go down. Is Texas really ready for Alabama this coming weekend? We're going to find out. And let's pump the brakes a little bit on OU. Yes, they dominated, won 73-0, but let's keep in mind who they were playing. Arkansas State's awful, maybe one of the worst teams in the FBS, so let's not put too much stock into that. And hey, the newcomers in the conference, UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, and BYU all won their games, start 4-0 for the newcomers in the Big 12 on the season. Over in the ACC, it appears there is a new top dog. Now, whether that's going to be Florida State, maybe North Carolina, we're not sure yet, but Clemson looks bad. At this point, Clemson looks bad. From watching their game against Duke, it almost feels like Duke was the better team and would win that game if played again. With that being said, is Duke for real? Possibly. They're a veteran, experienced team with a really good quarterback. Duke has a chance this year to make some things happen. And North Carolina looks like they have a defense. Granted, it's only one game, but it looks like Gene Chizik and company have been able to put something together with an experienced group that could help North Carolina contend for the title this season. Let's go ahead and look ahead to Week 2. We will be picking 7 games in Week 2. Usually we like to keep it to 5, but it's early in the season. We're feeling good, so we're going to go with 7 games. This is what a college football weekend should look like. I think we would all admit Week 1 was a little tame. Week 2 gets a little bit better. Love to see how these games are going to go. Come back on Friday. We will have our picks in on Friday for these 7 games. We'll give you our picks for the spread, the total, and the straight-up winner. Might even have a couple of surprises for you in there. So make sure to subscribe, like our videos, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss our picks. We're just getting rolling here on the Gridiron Guesser. 6-2 over our last 8 against the spread, 9-2 straight up on the season, 7-4 on the totals. We are just getting started. Let's go. Subscribe, like our videos, turn on your notifications. Thanks for joining us on this Week 1 recap as the college football season is just getting heated up. We'll be back Friday with our outstanding picks on those 7 games. We can't wait. We'll see you next time.